Hey guys, happy Wednesday morning. I hope you're watching this video during the time segment of your class. Remember, go back and leave a comment on my daily posting so that I can take your attendance. Also, hopefully by now you will have submitted your tests. I hope those tests went well for you today. I'm hoping that you did them with open book. I hope you called a friend. I know a couple of you actually reached out to me today, and I think that was a little helpful to you. The same rules are going to apply for our test on Friday. So I want to make sure you're ready for that. But for today, we're starting on lesson 44. Okay? I want to show you something. We always go from what we know to what we don't know. Something as easy as this. I've got a 1 over 11 plus a 2 over 11. Because the 11s are the same, we know that our rules say that I can add the top numbers. So I end up having a 3 over 11s, okay? But what happens when we mix in some letters? The variables kind of mix things up for us. Do they or do they not? I have a 5 over an a plus 6. I have an a plus b over an a plus 6. And I have a 2 over an a plus 6. But by the same rules, this denominator matches, and because it matches, I'm able to follow the rules up top, whether it's addition or subtraction. So what I end up having with is a 5 plus a plus b plus 2 over a plus 6. And if you follow your rules, we still have to combine these things. So I end up having a 7 plus a plus b over a plus 6. And that is your answer. I hope you followed along that logic there. That being said, let's go over here to look at number 3. And this is part of today's lesson. You have, again, two denominators that are the same. So the rule says that if the denominators are the same, I can add or subtract the numerators on top. So let's do that. This says 4 minus 6ax. So I'm actually going to write that out. 4 minus 6ax over 2x squared plus y. Guys, it is that easy. Follow those rules and you'll be able to take what you've known and apply it to something that you haven't quite done yet. That's part A of lesson 44. Let's move on to part B a little bit. What happens if the denominators don't match? Well, you'll know how to do this. If the denominators don't match, we've got to make sure that they match somehow. So what we end up usually doing is doing this. We kind of do a 1 over 2 times 2 over 2 a little bit. And you end up having to rewrite this a little bit. 1 over 4 plus 2 over 4. This should be old nature to you at this point, but I'm pointing it out to you that what you multiply to the top, you do to the bottom. We use those terms a lot, and now I can fix this problem. This is old school stuff. You've already got this. The denominators now match. I can add the top. 3 over 4, and that's your answer. So let's take what we know and apply it to something that we haven't quite done yet. We are now adding a variable into our denominator here. These denominators certainly do not add up. They don't match. So we have to come up with a plan to make this work. A lesson or two ago, we learned how to do the least common multiples. And in the least common multiples, we learned how to do that. You're going to be able to apply that now. So you have to find the least common multiple of 4 and b. Let's walk through that, all right? Remember, when we look for least common multiples, we're going to divide it by 2, 3, and then 5, depending on what order it is. So let's divide 4 by 2. Well, if that's 2 and 2's over, that means 2 times 2 is part of the multiple of 4. And what's the multiple of b? Well, it's just b. All right? So when you end up having that, you know that the numbers that are common are 4 and b. So now that you've found the least common multiples, I want you to go to this step. Automatically draw your lines. This should be an automatic step for you. okay? Once you draw the lines, the least common multiple of 4 and b is actually 4b together. So now that I've got a bottom that matches, we now have to do to the top what I did to the bottom. So let's go back to the original problem. Here's 4. What did I have to do to 4 to get 4b? Well, I had to multiply times b. So let's do the same thing to the top. 3 times b equals a 3b. Let's do the same thing on the right number. From b to 4b, what did I have to do to b to get it to be 4b? Well, I obviously multiplied it times 4. So if the bottom was multiplied times 4, what do I do to the top? I multiply it times 4, and I end up with 8. Now we should be somewhere similar to what we're accustomed to doing. I've got a common denominator, and I've got a plus or a minus. And because of that, I can now add or subtract the top 9s. So let's do that. I end up having a 3b plus 8 over 4b. Are you following the logic? Are you following the example on that? Okay. Now let's go to one that's a little bit more difficult. I want to give you a little bit more meat on this one. You'll notice that the bottom denominators are c squared, 4 times c to the third, and 3 times c to the fourth. So it's a little bit mixed up. But let's follow the same rules we did on the very last one. We've got to find a least common multiple. We know we have to break down c squareds into c times c. Well, let's break down a 4. So the 4 we already know breaks down into 2 times 2. And a c breaks down into a c times c times c. Okay. 3 breaks down into a 3. And then c breaks down into a c times c times c times c. Now you remember from this point, we take a little bit from each one. So because there are 2's, well, we're going to do a 2 times 2 because that's the majority of 2's. And then we're going to do a 3 because that's the majority of 3's. I've got 2 c's here, 3 c's here, and 4 c's here. Well, because of that, I'm going to pick the 4 c's because it's the majority. C plus C plus C plus C. And now from this point, what we learned the other day is that we multiply it all the way across. So now I have a 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And then all that times c to the fourth. I did all that to now bring you back to the top. Over here, I showed you that I drew my lines. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here. Line, line, line. My new denominator is 12c to the fourth on all 3 of these. 12c to the fourth. Now that you've done this, you have to go back to the 3 original denominators. And let's see how we went from here to here. So I've got a c squared that went to a 12 times c to the fourth. What did I multiply times c squared to get 12 times c to the fourth? Well, the first thing I did was multiply 12 against it. Okay, so keep that in mind. I multiplied 12 against it. C squared then would have been another c squared. So I ended up having a 12c squared times a. See how I go back here and do the same thing to the bottom? Now let's go to the next number, see if you can follow the logic. 12c to the fourth, I changed it from 4c to the third to 12c to the fourth. Well, what did I multiply times 4 to get 12? We know the answer is 3. So I know I'm going to multiply the top times 3 also. So 3 times 3 is 9. A c to the third goes to a c to the fourth by being multiplied by c. So my top number is c. Let's follow the same logic on the last one. 12c to the fourth. I went from 3c to the fourth to a 12c to the fourth Well, 3 was obviously multiplied times 4. So let's go ahead and put a 4. All right. A c to the 4th and a c to the 4th. Well, that's just one thing. So I don't even have to add anything to that. It was obviously there. And then I've got my m. Now, we've done a whole lot of work to get to this point. And you're not going to believe it, but the problem is not quite done. Because now I still have to add these. All that work I did was to set up that we had a common denominator, and now I have to add the top, okay? So, or use the appropriate numbers, or the addition sign. So let's bring that over, plus, because it was plus and plus on the original, we're now gonna use plus and plus on the new. And let me use this space down here, equals. And so we know the denominator is going to be 12c to the 4th, because you keep the denominator when you add, and then you add the top numbers. 12c squared a plus 9c plus 4m. And that is your final answer, okay? You need to take the time to think through this, because we're teaching this lesson remotely. I want you to go back and look at all the examples in the lessons. There are about 5 or 6, 7 different examples. I only did a few. I want you to go back and look at the actual lessons. Homework is the same homework. It's due tomorrow, due on Thursday morning, but it is the practice questions, Will Kunkel, the practice lessons, the practice questions, and questions 1 through 30. And they need to be done. Here's the catch. Thursday is going to be a test prep day. This information is going to be on your test. So if you have any questions as you're going through your homework and you get stuck on these, reach out to me. I'll be glad to walk you through it. I can talk to you on the phone. I can text you, whatever works for you. But work through it. Test prep on Thursday and another take-home test on Friday. I hope you guys like that, the take-home test where you could talk to the captain, where you could call your friends, where you could look at the books. But that'll be the same format that we'll take to our test Friday. Know that you're loved, know that you're missed, know that you're prayed for often. Love you guys.